Hello, Trail Seeker, and welcome to another exciting episode of the Learn True Health podcast. Today we have with us a board-certified naturopathic physician who is here to offer you easy steps to finally figuring out your health issues and getting you back on the road to wellness. As you listen to this interview, I know you're going to want to learn more from him and dive into all of his free resources. So he created a page on his website. It's his name, StephenCabral.com/Ashley for all the listeners of our podcast. So just to keep it simple, StephenCabral.com/Ashley gets you to a page that has links to all more free content, as well as any of the things that he mentions that you may be interested in purchasing, like the home test kits, which he'll talk about in our interview, that are really fascinating. The link to that is going to be in the show notes of today's podcast at learntruehealth.com, so you can easily access it. And I definitely recommend checking it out. His free resources are amazing, as well as his very affordable system for getting to the root cause and shifting your life and your lifestyle and your diet so that you can nourish your body and gain optimal health. Excellent. Well, enjoy today's interview. Welcome to the Learn True Health podcast. I'm your host, Ashley James. This is episode 271. Today we are in for such a treat. As you know, my number one favorite doctors to interview are naturopathic physicians, closely followed by chiropractors and doctors of traditional Chinese medicine. Today we have with us an amazing board-certified naturopathic doctor, Dr. Stephen Cabral. Welcome to the show.
So great to be here. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Now, my listeners love listening to holistic health podcasts, so I have to let them know right off the bat that they can check out the podcast on iTunes called Cabral Concepts, Wellness, Weight Loss, Anti-Aging, Detox, and Functional Medicine. The link to your podcast is going to be in the show notes of this show at learntruehealth.com. And you've got 850 episodes. I know because you basically just get on the mic and you have a plethora of information to share. And it's just a wealth. I know my listeners are going to just start binge listening to your show after they hear this one.
That's great. And that's really, it's just one topic a day. And so really that's what I try to do. That's my true passion, is teaching. And yeah, it's very, very enjoyable for me.
Awesome. Well, we're going to get into some really cool stuff here today because you have discovered the root cause of the obesity epidemic. You also see that there's a large connection between gut health and the rest of the body. And we want to get into that and other amazing topics today. But first, I want us to have an understanding of you as a doctor. What happened in your life that made you want to become a naturopath?
Yeah, so I think that's kind of thing is whenever someone goes in the natural health field, especially as a naturopathic doctor, is you're looking at it saying, well, what happened to this person? Because it's not always the easiest road to get here, and it's not always people don't quite know what a naturopathic doctor is in mainstream. And so what I look at it is, when you go into this profession, whether it's health coaching or even a chiropractor, whatever it might be, a lot of times you were suffering from something, you overcame it, you discovered, what that thing is, and you want to share it with the world. And that's essentially no different from me. When I was 17 years old, I got extremely sick, and I woke up one morning and all my glands were swollen. I literally couldn't walk. My heart rate was about 150, 160 beats per minute. And of course, I went right to the doctors, and they literally had no idea what was wrong with me. They took my blood work, and yes, the white blood cell counts were off, but they couldn't determine exactly what it was. So this literally went on for a couple of years of just going to specialist after specialist and the best doctors in Boston. And I always like to say, and the best doctors in Boston couldn't put me back together again. And that was literally it. And so by chance, this is little over 20 years ago, my mother hears about an alternative medicine doctor. And this person was a medical doctor, but they had training overseas, which is really important. And they also studied acupuncture. They started to teach me about the endocrine system, the hormones of the body, and food sensitivities and my gut. And then slowly but surely, I actually took some of that back to conventional medicine, and they're like, "Oh, this is wrong. This is wrong." And then they diagnose me, which is I always wanted that diagnosis. What's really wrong with me? Well, I had Addison's disease. I had myalgic encephalomyelitis, which essentially means you feel like you're living with the flu all the time. It's true chronic
Mm.
fatigue, deep, and that's tough as a teenager to have that. And I had rheumatoid arthritis, coupled with type 2 diabetes. And a lot of people ask, well, like, how does that many things go wrong? And the reason is that my entire immune system had really shut down from being a stressed out, senior in high school, working a couple jobs and, just all the aspects of just being a stressed out high school student. But also, I had taken 3,000 capsules of amoxicillin the previous 2.5 years because of a dermatologist that thought it would be a good idea to help with my skin issues.
Oh
So,
my gosh.
needless to say, my gut was devastated, and that is not a quick fix. So I spent, I'm happy to share the rest of the story if you want throughout the podcast, but it was years of figuring out what was wrong with me because this is 20 plus years ago, and rebuilding my body. And it was a really tough time, but I can say now that um, I have no rheumatoid arthritis, no type 2 diabetes, Addison's disease, or myalgic encephalomyelitis. 20 plus years later, I have more energy and more vitality than I did even as a teenager. So, really, like, all things are possible. They really are if you're able to kind of dig deep enough and figure out what's going on.
So, does taking antibiotics to that extent directly cause those issues, or can you walk us through, like, what if someone's been on like 3 courses of antibiotics in the last year? Should they be concerned that if they don't do something to repair their gut health, that it could lead down that road to developing these other issues?
Absolutely. I mean, hands down. Does it happen to everyone? No. And that's the thing. You don't always know. And that's why genetics do matter, but they honestly don't matter as much as people believe they do because 95%, and this is actually studied, 95% of all disease as we know it is diet and environment and lifestyle. Now, a lot of that you can be doing well, but then you take something like antibiotics and it starts to open up the tight junctions in the gut. Well, and again, this is conventional medicine, naturopathic medicine. This is all science based. And so what we look at it is we say, okay, when those gut junctions open up, you now allow normal proteins from the foods that you're eating to spill into the bloodstream. And when those spill into the bloodstream, it increases the immune activity. That increases inflammation, which can then create an autoimmune based response. And that's why we have 90+% of all autoimmune diseases in this country and in the world relate to some type of intestinal permeability. And since we know antibiotics and alcohol and birth control and the chlorine in tap water and Advil and Nsaids, all of those things can contribute to that. It's sometimes only a matter of time or degree of intestinal permeability that's separating people from great health to potentially disease.
So if someone's taking Advil or they've taken these antibiotics or the other things you've mentioned that increase intestinal permeability, and maybe they already have been diagnosed with the autoimmune, or maybe they haven't yet. Either way, what can they do to firm up the 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 gut junctions so that they lessen the intestinal and eliminate the intestinal permeability?
Yeah, that's a great question. And actually, it's the first step and really the only step that matters in the beginning. And the reason is that, we see a lot of people with Hashimoto's or rheumatoid arthritis or whatever it might be, and you can do things to try to lessen the symptoms. Or with rheumatoid, you can do things for the inflammation. But again, like, none of that matters if you're not going to, why is your body spilling proteins in your bloodstream? And
Mm.
then, because you can't shut off the immune system until that happens. I mean, you can suppress it, of course, with biological drugs, but then you can literally die for something as simple as pneumonia, which so it's like it's a very acute based mindset, like, oh well, let's fix it for this instant so that the person doesn't have to suffer from the swollen or deformed joints, which I totally understand. Believe me, I was there. Like, I get that. Or the Hashimoto's, which then you have all the symptoms of a sluggish based thyroid. So what I look for is we do a lot of lab testing. And the amazing thing is now, like, literally, you can get a lab shipped to you anywhere in the world. I mean, so you can literally test your intestinal permeability. We use something called an organic acids test. You can get it through any functional medicine practitioner. You can get it online, And we recommend a stool test if you're able to. So they do different things. The organic acids test will actually look at candida overgrowth and fungal overgrowth because as you're taking antibiotics, they're antibacterial, but they're not antifungal. So a lot of people get yeast overgrowth and candida overgrowth because the antibacterial or the antibiotic does nothing to kill the yeast. So the yeast actually
Mm.
just says, "Oh, this is the perfect environment now. You've wiped out some of this space which used to be taken up by bacteria. Why don't we increase?" And they recolonize or they increase their colony. And so you look at that for the organic acids test, that would C. diff, Clostridium difficile, which is a common bacteria that overgrows with antibiotic use or hospitalization. And then you can do a stool test to look at parasites, and that's so common for people who take PPIs, proton pump inhibitors, who have acid reflux. And the reason is, if you shut down stomach acid, well, you allow bacteria and you allow parasites to actually go right through the stomach unabated because the acid would have usually killed them in the first place. So you can do a stool test for bacterial overgrowth, parasite overgrowth, and H. pylori. And then if you want, you could run a food sensitivity test. But and that's a great thing to run because again, like we're just about data, meaning that people they're saying like, okay, another lab, another this, but if you have the data, it's really hard to refute, right? Because you're looking at it. Look, you have candida overgrowth. Look, you have SIBO. You have bacterial overgrowth in your gut. You have H. pylori. You have to get rid of those because what's happening is your immune system knows they're there. So they're attacking them and they're creating inflammation. And everyone's worried about inflammation. But the problem is we can't always worry about inflammation because you have to figure out what's causing the inflammation in the first place. That's
It
why,
right,
go ahead.
inflation is the smoke, not the fire. Stop treating the
Exactly.
smoke and treat the fire. Treat what's causing the inflammation because the body's intelligent. It created inflammation in a way to get the immune system there, right?
Absolutely correct. I mean, that's right on the money. And smoke is a great analogy because what are we trying to do then? Fan the smoke? We're trying to get rid of the smoke, but really, like, why don't we put out the fire?
Mhm. So is it the candida overgrowth that's causing the fire in this instance, or is it the H. pylori or the parasites or the fungus, or is that causing the fire, or is the fire the intestinal permeability? What's the root
Yep.
cause?
Well, it's all of the above, but
Oh.
the yeast overgrowth, the bacterial overgrowth, all of that sets the stage for the immune-based reactions, which can that inflammation can also help or hurt you by opening up those tight junctions. So it really is an all of the above. The nice thing is you can work on it all at once. You don't have to really say like, oh, okay, well, we'll do this, this, and this. The way that I mean, I always give the information out like freely on the podcast, talk about that. What we do is we work at, I should say, getting rid of the most invasive pathogens first. So we go after removing the H. pylori and the parasites first because you have to fix the stomach so that you can actually start digesting food again, so that you can absorb your nutrients, so that it doesn't all have to be supplement based. Like we're big on supplements for the first 12 weeks to maybe 16 weeks, but then we try to wean people off as their digestive system is improving. So once we get rid of the H. pylori and the parasites, if they're there, then we work on the SIBO, the bacterial overgrowth, as well as the candida overgrowth, because those can be worked on at the same exact time. And then what we do is we seal up the gut wall and repopulate, obviously, with good bacteria. And the reason why probiotics are not always the best idea is that if you already have bacterial overgrowth, putting more bacteria in can sometimes give people a lot of brain fog and more bloating and gas because they're adding kind of, again, they're just kind of putting another log on the fire when they need to do a removal process first.
So let's say the person's gone through that program to kill all this stuff that shouldn't be there, supporting the body to get rid of it. And now it's time to close up the intestinal permeability and then repopulate with a healthy gut flora. What is the procedure? How do you close up the gaps in the intestines? Or does the body heal itself and happen on its own once you remove all the stressors?
Yeah, that's another great question. So the way that you remove first, and again, I always give all of this away, what we do freely. Ours is called the Candida and Bacterial Overgrowth Protocol. And what we do is we actually use biofilm disruptors. That's a lot of what's missing today as people are trying to, again, we can't use the word treat, right? So we'll use in air quotes. But the way that we're able to get rid of that bacteria and yeast is we have to remove the outer layer, the protective layer, that's keeping it hidden. So what we do is we use proteases, we use specific types of enzymes to just dissolve that top layer. And then you're using natural things. So, and again, the enzymes are natural. You're using natural things such as oregano and caprylic acid and pau d'arco and just amazing herbs. And you can't just do it for 3 weeks. Even my colleagues that might be DOs and they're using things like nystatin and diflucan, they're still doing them for like 6 to 8 weeks. And the natural protocol, we're doing them for 12 weeks. We're really making sure we do this once and we do it just for good. And then after that, yes, we're repopulating. How do you seal up the gut wall? You're right. The gut wall, your whole body will heal itself, but it still needs the raw material. So we give it the glutamine, we give it the zinc carnosine, we give it a little bit of the aloe vera, other things that we know scientifically are proven to help decrease the inflammation, rebuild the gut mucosa, the mucus, and then rebuild the gut lining. And the predominant ones really are glutamine and zinc carnosine.
How long have you been doing I know obviously it's been trial and error for you because as a doctor you always adjust new information comes out and also what you see clinically. But how long have you been doing this exact procedure with your patients?
Yeah, so we started about a decade ago, and the protocol we're using now, because you're exactly right, was refined approximately 5 years ago. So we would do iterations of different type of biofilm disruptors because we knew it had to be done, but we didn't always know the perfect product. Now, I will tell you the nutritional supplement industry is it takes whatever is great right now and it can usually make it better in the future. Like that's the
Mhm.
nice thing. Herbs don't get better, right? They can't. Like they're just great herbs. So herbs are not going to change over the thousands of years. We still have the amazing herbs out there, such as like I named a few already, the oregano oils, those types of things. But what can change also is the delivery method. And so we're using time release capsules. We're using different types of things that can just work great with the gut. And then obviously probiotics. I would say probiotics, which is the microbiome or the bacteria, and genetics are the new frontier of health. So I would say our biofilm disruptors and our herbs will never change really going forward. I can never say never, but we're really settled in on those because they work great. But the strains that we use for repopulating the gut, they might change. They really might. But what we're doing right now, we can clinically say works because what we do is we lab test before and we lab test after. We can see that there was H. pylori, there was yeast overgrowth, there was bacterial overgrowth, and then we go through the protocol. We make sure it's been gone, and then we say, oh, it's gone. And so, like again, that's clinically verified, and that's why I also like to say naturopathic medicine. Although we don't use pharmaceuticals. What we use, nature gave us very, very powerful medicine, and we can use nature's medicine that's been used for thousands of years ago, or thousands of years in India. I was studied in India and China, but also, I mean, you look in South America, they use different herbs, but those herbs work great too. So there are different ways to get it to work. You just need to make sure you're kind of doing the whole process.
Did you say you studied in India and China?
I did. So part of my healing process, which some of that was mental as well, meaning that I got well, but I was so overwhelmed and jaded by the entire process of if that taking so long to get well. I didn't get well until my mid 20s, and I said that there just has to be an easier way, and that there are so many great forms of medicine that I'm going to literally go all over the world to intern as a naturopathic doctor. I was basically my last year in school, and I said, whoever's form of medicine is the best, that's what I'm going to practice. Because as a naturopathic doctor, you basically have to specialize in something. So I said, I'm going to go study Ayurvedic medicine. I'm going to go study it in India and Sri Lanka. So I worked in hospitals there. I worked in clinics there. I went to China and I studied Chinese medicine at a hospital there, traditional Chinese medicine hospital. And I already, read and done my studies, but I wanted to see. Essentially, I studied in Europe and the U.S. I wanted to see what worked in the real world. Like that was a thing. And I said, whatever works, that's what I'm going to practice. Well, again, I was easily corrected. And I found that every form of medicine worked. That was the amazing thing. They all worked. But the problem was it did not work for everyone in every circumstance. So what I realized after, doing those 2 years of essentially or 18 months of internships is that everything can work. Every form of medicine works. Every form of medicine is the best as long as you know who to apply it with. And that really just it was the last straw that kind of shattered that ego that a lot of people have, and I certainly had that. That there is no I'm the best or my form of medicine is the best. And that's why I respect conventional medicine for acute based care. And I respect acupuncture and chiropractic and naturopathic. They're all amazing. It's just you need to know what to use at the right time.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Now, going back to your story, you were diagnosed with a handful of things. So you had mentioned type 2 diabetes.
Yeah, so what happened was that since I had Addison's disease, and a lot of people with Addison's disease can't control blood sugar. They actually start with really low hypoglycemia, really low blood sugar, but through previously, when you're under greater amounts of stress, it's not well known, just kind of out there in the public domain, but stress alone, producing cortisol, even drinking a large cup of coffee can actually spike blood sugar. And there's no sugar in coffee, obviously. There's no sugar with stress. But what happens is your body goes into a state of fight or flight. And because you're in fight or flight, it knows that it needs sugar as a short term fuel source. So it's one of the reasons why people suffer from weight gain issues, even though they're on a low carb diet or they're still spiking blood sugar after even a workout. And again, you can test this yourself with a $20 glucometer right at home. You can actually look to see if you're, in a state of high blood sugar. So what happened was due to inflammation, due to gut microbiome deficiencies, because it was wiped out with antibiotics, and suffering from Addison's disease, I ended up with type 2 diabetes. And again, that was corrected over time, but yeah, that was a side effect.
Can you explain the process? I think people would be interested. I know some people that would be really interested in understanding this process of that stress in and of itself can affect blood sugar. So as cortisol spikes, is that telling the body to also release insulin?
Well, so what happens is you get a sense of stress, and the stress could be you're stuck in traffic and you're late for a meeting. It could be emotional based. It could be pain, like you're feeling pain in the body, or it could be a really hard workout, or maybe you've just gone too long without eating, and you're feeling that stress. So whatever stress is on the body, the brain gets a signal. So it's the hypothalamus. The hypothalamus in the brain, it's just a gland, and it tells the pituitary gland to then stimulate the adrenals, and it's called the adrenal medulla. So the medulla produces norepinephrine, or just think of it as adrenaline. Like that gets the heart rate going, that gets that fever going. The body feels like, okay, it's ready to charge or run away. It could do either. And then after that, the hypothalamus then gets a new signal, or it sends a new signal to send to the pituitary gland. So it's called the HPA axis, to tell the adrenal cortex to produce cortisol. Okay, so now as you're producing cortisol, you're in full blown fight or flight. They're called glucocorticoids. And your body then gets a new signal saying, okay, we're in a life saving, survival based situation. We need a fuel source. And if you don't have enough sugar in your blood, your body will create something called gluconeogenesis, where it can take proteins, it can take tissue, it can take even glycogen, stored glycogen, and bring it to the bloodstream for immediate needs.
So
And so
that's when the liver takes like your calf muscle and turns it into blood sugar.
and so first of all, it uses glycogen stores, but it can use tissue. And the reason is that you have somewhere around 80 to 120 maximum grams of glucose. We'll call it glucose instead of glycogen, stored in the liver. But then after that, it's going to start taking it from tissue. And so that's why your body can actually catabolize your own muscle tissue, lower your metabolism, make it harder for you to lose weight when you're in a state of stress, and actually raise blood sugar on its own.
And is this the mechanism that happens when people wake up in the morning and they're without eating, their blood sugar goes up? So that's that syndrome they have where it's like their blood sugar's they can have their blood sugar under control all day long, except for in the morning between waking and breakfast, their blood sugar actually spikes.
So they would want to test that for sure, because if you wake up, so the way that a rudimentary diagnosis for type 2 diabetes is when you wake up or 3 hours post meal with a blood sugar above 126. So if you wake up above 95, you're having blood sugar dysregulation. If you're above 126, you essentially have type 2 diabetes. And if you wake up and it's normal, meaning like it's between 75 and 95 on your glucometer, and again, this is a very simple at-home test that you can do, then say it's normal, but then between then and breakfast it spikes. It could be because your cortisol levels are increasing around 6 a.m. So anywhere between 4 and 8 a.m., your cortisol levels climb. And if you hit anxiety, if you're anxious about the day, those can all be reasons, yes, why your blood sugar would spike.
I don't know if you know this about me, but I had chronic adrenal fatigue, diagnosed chronic adrenal fatigue and type 2 diabetes.
I did
So
not know
what
that, but
you're
that makes
describing
sense. They go together.
was my life. And I reversed both of them using natural medicine. And thus, one of the reasons why I started this podcast is I wanted to help everyone. I suffered for many years. It was, I felt like a prisoner in my own body. I'd break down crying. I felt hungry and tired all the time. Every morning, I couldn't actually, my brain, I don't know if you experienced this, but I could not process language in the morning. Like it would take a few hours of drinking coffee and waking up, and then I could process language. But like my husband would be talking to me, and it wouldn't make sense. Like I couldn't understand, and that's how
Absolutely.
absolutely exhausted I was. And when I had my cortisol levels tested, I was tested by a functional MD who had been in the Olympics twice, and she said the only time I've ever seen cortisol this low was right after I did the Olympics both times.
Wow.
And yeah, and that for me, the day I got that, information that I wasn't like looking for a diagnosis to because like that was, I was just finally it was someone believed me, you know what I mean? Finally it was like here I can show people I'm not crazy or I'm not lazy or because I felt so I was beating myself up, which obviously wasn't helping, but then it was like, "Look, here's what's actually going on with your body, it's not your fault, we can correct this." So I totally respect what you're saying about get these home lab tests, like, just go, do the poop test, and because if you're feeling sick all the time and you've been to the MDs and they're just, they're not able to correctly diagnose you or they're trying to just throw a bunch of drugs at you and you're just feeling tired or sick or or you've got gut issues and no one's able to give you the right route, you're just getting the runaround, and then you do these tests, these very simple at home tests, and then it finally reveals, well, yeah, you're justified in how you feel, how you've been feeling, because what your body's dealing with is candida overgrowth or fungal overgrowth or intestinal permeability, and which is and fungus, which is you know wreaking havoc, and it's you're able to reverse it, which is the great news, uh but also that finally knowing what the root cause is can be so emotionally healing.
Yeah, I agree. It is too bad that right now, if in conventional medicine they can't see it on your blood work or they can't figure it out, they just tell you that it must be in your head, and then they look to give you some type of anti-anxiety or antidepressant. And I'm not saying that there's not a time and a place, but they do. I mean, I was told that this is most likely psychosomatic. It's in my head, and that's really tough as a teenager, being like, I have pain literally beside my intestines and no one's telling me what, or beside my belly button, nobody's telling me what that is. And they were like, well, there's no organ there, there's nothing. I'm like, I mean, later I learned, well, that's my small intestine. I'm like, how is nobody looking for SIBO? I didn't. I mean, these are the best specialists in the world. And so yeah, I just think, I mean, really, I think what you're doing is amazing. You're teaching people about natural health, and you're also giving people hope, meaning that there's always a reason why. There really is. Everybody can
Mm.
fix their body. I mean, honestly, they can, as long as you don't give up. I mean, and that's the thing. It's hard when you have chronic fatigue because just like you, I had terrible brain fog and I did have the language issue, meaning that a lot of times, not only was I having trouble keeping up in terms of processing, but at the same time, I couldn't speak. The effort, like I actually thought about speaking. Nobody thinks about speaking. Like I
Right.
thought about how much effort it was going to take to put together a sentence, and then I waited whether sentence was going to be worth it or not. And that by the time I weighed that, the conversation was over. So it was not a good place to be. Like it really wasn't. And I can laugh about it now, but yes, most of the time I was just crying back then, like
Yeah.
being like, how is this my life? Like, I mean, do I deserve this? Like it was all of these victim based mentality. And, I
Mhm.
felt like I was justified being the victim because of all these terrible circumstances. And you could say, well, I created those circumstances. Yes. But at the same time, it was unknowing. Like nobody's purposely creating the state that they're in for to be in poor health. I don't think that. So that's why at the same time, never feel like you did this to yourself. Yes, you might have taken the antibiotics or, all these other things that can cause disease, but you didn't know it at the time. And now that you do, it's all part of the healing journey to not do it again. That's essentially it.
Right, right, exactly. I just Yesterday's in the past, learn from it and apply the lessons to the now. It's interesting that you pointed out that it's been proven that 95% of our health or our disease is directly related to diet, environment, and lifestyle. You wouldn't think that by watching any kind of TV. I don't watch TV anymore. Like, we got rid of our TV a long time ago and cable, but we were recently in a location where cable TV was playing, and the 500 pharmaceutical commercials that play in 30 seconds. And you are I was blown away by the languaging. If you pay attention to these pharmaceutical commercials, and according to any pharmaceutical commercial, you would not think that 95% of our health could be resolved with diet, environment, and lifestyle.
That's the truth. Yeah. But the problem is that, so this is the very interesting thing and the big problem that we have right now with the American Medical Society. And they're teaching doctors who have the best of intentions. We're talking about medical doctors. Like the medical doctors just want to help people. But the problem is they're teaching them the the pathology essentially of disease, but then they're not allowing them to treat it naturally. They're saying if you come in with X, you get Y automatically. So if you come in with high cholesterol, you automatically get Nystatin. If you come in with high blood pressure, you automatically get a calcium channel blocker, beta blocker, whatever it might be. If you have acid reflux, automatically get Prilosec. And here's why. If you don't give the patient that, you're liable. Meaning, like, what if the person had a heart attack? What if they did this, this, and this? So they're teaching the doctors this is what they have to do. This is their only option. And they also then only give them 15-minute appointments. Like my appointments are 60 minutes long. Like they're long appointments in order to try to teach at the same time because it's about education. And the worst part is that pharmaceutical agencies essentially run this process, and they're businesses. Like they're not. It's not this. I don't know the best way to say it, like a nonprofit where they're just trying to help. Like they're a big business competing against other pharmaceuticals and saying that you need to do this in order to get rid of your disease. But the problem is, like, there's no such thing as disease. It's a set of symptoms. When you come in with rheumatoid arthritis, you don't have rheumatoid arthritis. What you have are the inflammatory reactions that are causing the tissues and the joints to break down because of like a high Th1 immune imbalance, meaning like your immune system is too weighted on one side. There's other things going on in the body that's creating that immune based reaction that's then manifesting as rheumatoid arthritis or type 2 diabetes or MS. Like that's when your genetics matter. Your genetics matter when you've already gotten to the point that the body is now at its tipping point. I call it the rain barrel. Like your rain barrel's completely full. And once it's full, well, now it's overflowing. Now you see the symptoms of disease. They were probably creeping up. Like you probably felt the fatigue upon waking. It took you a little while to get going. You probably felt the decrease in energy, sometimes a decrease in libido or just kind of like ambition and drive. Just like it's all these things that start to show you signs, but it's just one day we wake up with whatever it is and we think like it came out of nowhere, but it's not. It's been building up.
I once had a naturopath once told me that there's no such thing as disease, and I kind of maybe squished up my face. Like, what do what do they mean by that? And like, what are you trying to sell me? And he's like, well, okay, bring me a barrel of apples. Okay, I can imagine bringing him a barrel of apples, right? You could bring him a bicycle, right? He goes, but bring me a barrel of arthritis. You can't a disease. This is it's a concept of symptoms. It's not something you can physically, like, I can't physically, like, here, have 10 diabetes. I can't, it's not an actual real, like, here's a house is a real thing. We can all see, we can all agree it's a house. But you get 10 different doctors and you get them all to diagnose someone, they might all come up with different diagnosis. I recently went through this with my son who was having I mean, he has such a healthy immune system. His immune system went into like just overdrive. The second he had this virus, he had a fever, and then he had some wheezing, and so we took him to we have a naturopathic pediatrician, and the pediatrician was concerned and said, you know what, I really just want to rule out pneumonia. Let's go to Children's, and we saw. I mean, Children's Hospital is great here. I'm happy with them. But the second you go into a hospital, you're dealing with MD medicine, right? And the first medicine they gave him, I mean, I could have cried. They gave him IV magnesium. I was like, "Are you kidding me? This is wonderful." It's so wonderful to see that they didn't wanna, like, start off with pharmaceuticals, but, we probably saw 10
Amazing.
different doctors, and all of them had a different diagnosis, and at the end of the day, it didn't matter because he wasn't getting I mean, at the end of the day, within 48 hours, it was, like, he was totally fine, and within 24 hours, he was almost 100% better, but he did come in with respiratory distress from the virus, and it came on so quickly, and it was a good place to be because he was having respiratory distress, but it was resolved really fast also. And every single doctor we saw looked at the exact same labs, the exact same boy, and had a different diagnosis. Now, essentially the treatment's the same, but my point being, if you have a series of symptoms, you could go to many doctors and they could all diagnose you something different. So diagnosis in and of itself is not a it's not a real tangible thing like a house is. It's a concept. It's a mentality, and like in our Facebook group, the Learn Child Facebook group, we were discussing about one of our members, one of our listeners has a dog who went to a vet, and the vet diagnosed this dog with a rare autoimmune condition and wanted to put him on a bunch of drugs. So she went for a second opinion to a holistic vet who diagnosed the dog with, you're never going to believe this, with his jaw was dislocated. I mean, two totally different diagnosis, but the treatment would have been completely different, right? And so sometimes we go to the MD and look at them as though they're the king, or they're, on the pedestal, or what they have to say, because they, have so much education, and sometimes they have an ego and a hubris about them that intimidates us, but their diagnosis is not this tangible thing. It's a concept of a series of symptoms, and I want you to kind of go into this a bit more because it is part of our mindset of healing. If I had bought into this diagnosis of diabetes from the MDs, I'd still have it. I'd still have diabetes because I'd be letting them treat me for diabetes, and an MD's treatment for diabetes does not reverse diabetes. They don't have they don't look to reverse it. They look to manage it.
That's
Whereas,
exactly
like you
correct.
said, diet, I have reversed my diabetes 100% with diet, with lifestyle change, and with a few supplements of mineral like chromium and vanadium supplements. Really easy stuff. And I reversed it within months. And
That's amazing.
it's something, it's actually I think type 2 diabetes is the easiest thing to reverse because the medicine you take is the 3 meals a day, and the walk you take after dinner, it's like that is your medicine. But if you go to an MD, and I'm not saying all MDs, because like you said, I think really do believe MDs, have a heart to want to help people, but the problem is their education is solely allopathic, and the allopathic medical system is influenced and created by the pharmaceutical industry. And that's historical fact, not my tinfoil hat wearing conspiracy theory. Um, but I'd love you to just dive into this and explain it a bit so that people who maybe have a diagnosis, what about someone who has a diagnosis of cancer or who is holding on to a really big diagnosis like MS? How they might be a little enraged. How dare you say there's no such thing as disease? Could you get into the little bit of that for us?
Sure, and it's not so by saying there's no such thing as disease is not discounting what you're currently suffering from in your symptoms. So I fully agree that the symptoms are there, meaning that um, when you look at MS, you're looking at that inflammation of that myelin sheath in the nervous system, and you're looking at other issues that are going on. So what I'm trying to say is that we give the name MS, or we give the name rheumatoid arthritis, or we give the name Hashimoto's, we just give the symptoms a name. That's all I'm trying to say. Is that and plain and simple, the disease is not a real thing. The symptoms are real. But now we say, okay, so since because what happens is when we give something a name, it has power. So then that it has that power in our mind. Oh, I'm a Hashimoto sufferer. I'm a rheumatoid arthritis sufferer. I'm an Addison's disease sufferer. And a lot of these are just named after the doctor, by the way, that gave them the disease. So just throwing that out there, meaning Addison's disease, Hashimoto's, they're named after the doctors, the physicians who came up with it. So now we're giving the name of the doctor who came up with it, and we're said, okay, Well, so now that I'm diagnosed with this disease, I'm going to take these pharmaceuticals, which are going to mask these specific symptoms. So we think that we've healed the disease. But the problem is, if you ever come off of the drugs for rheumatoid, or let's just say you come off the statin drug for high cholesterol, well, your cholesterol goes back up and your rheumatoid symptoms come back. So at no point did the drug ever work on the root imbalances, the root cause of the disease. It simply suppressed, and suppressed is the best word to say it, because it masked, but it suppressed those issues deeper into the body, which in homotoxicology, which is a bioregulatory medicine term, brought it to a deeper tissue level, which means that's why a lot of people who have type 2 diabetes also get heart disease. They also get high blood pressure. Why? Because inflammation goes then to the heart. Inflammation goes to the pulmonary and arterial based systems of the body. So what we're looking at is constricted blood vessels, which can then lead to the heart disease and inflammation of the arteries and arterial sclerosis and high blood pressure. And so what I'm saying is we're doing ourselves and our culture, our community a disservice by just giving the disease a name, which then prevents us or does not allow us then to look at why we have the symptoms in the first place. Because if we keep talking about this thing called inflammation, then we could say, okay, so inflammation is causing a lot of my symptoms. So now let me look at what's causing the inflammation. If we can use what's called that disease pathology or pathophysiology process, we can then start to trace backwards. Okay, joint pain, inflammation. What's the inflammation coming from? Okay, gut permeability. Why is there gut permeability? Oh, SIBO. Why do I have SIBO? Oh, it's because I took a massive dose of antibiotics because of this, this, and this. Do you see? So you can always trace it back and then you can begin to heal the body,
And then you no longer have these symptoms, and so therefore you no longer have that disease.
which means the disease wasn't a real thing. That's right.
You
Oh,
know,
the symptoms were real, but the disease name wasn't because why you wouldn't be able to get rid of it
right.
if
And
it
I,
was
I,
real.
I used to have polycystic ovarian syndrome, and I tell people I cured it. I can say I cured my own. I mean, I'm not a doctor,
For
but I
sure.
cured my
Yes.
own polycystic ovarian syndrome. And I've had people who currently have PCOS say to me, you can never cure it. You just go into remission. You'll always have it. And that's that mentality that like we have a disease, right? It's like, no, 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 no. You don't have to have it. It's like I know I could turn type 2 diabetes on and off. Like I know I could. If I went and started eating McDonald's every day and chocolate bars and I stopped walking and I stressed my body out and I don't know, did all-nighters and drank, monster energy drinks. I could figure out how to mess my body up so bad I turned type 2 diabetes on, right?
For sure.
I could probably figure out how to turn a bunch of diseases on through diet, environment, and lifestyle. But I could also, heal them through diet, environment, lifestyle, and also going to a great naturopath like yourself and using herbal medicine when necessary and supplements when necessary. These are the natural tools that we have at our disposal to support the body's ability to heal itself.
Well,
And
that's why I ask: is remission is remission the same thing as you don't have it anymore? That, and I would say the answer is yes. Like, what's the difference?
right, why,
Right?
why?
It doesn't exist. You can't find it on blood work. You can't find it in labs. Like,
So why
where
do I
did
have
it
to hold
go?
on to it? Why does it have to be part of my
Exactly.
mentality to hold on to like an and I get why recovered alcoholics like I'm still an alcoholic like they hold on to it. I get in that context that is empowering them to not go back to that, and I understand that that's what serves them so good. You know, if calling myself a recovered diabetic is going to help me not eat a bunch of junk food mentally, if it's a mental game I need to play, then okay. But
That's a
otherwise,
great point. Yeah,
why
it's
are
that I
we
agree. That's a great point.
right? Why would we hold on to a mindset of a diagnosis if it doesn't serve us, right? Like I'm a recovered so and so. Well, if it's a cancer survivor, great, because then that's something you can hold on to proudly, But if it's stressing you out, like, oh, I'm worried the cancer's going to come back, and that stress in and of itself can trigger a cascade of illnesses.
It's the difference between, just like you said, it serves you or it keeps you frozen as the victim of that thing.
Mm,
And that's why I healed my disease long before I ever healed my mind. The last part was that I had to heal my mind in order to truly get well, because I was still the victim of the kid who had all of these different things. And so what I had to realize was that I'm not the Addison's disease. I'm not the rheumatoid arthritis. I'm not my parents. I'm not my community. I'm not any of these things that are trying to define who I am. That's not me. And yes, the problem with that is that becomes your identity for quite a while. People know you as that. Like that's a conversation starter. You might be
Mm-hmm.
part of groups like, there are groups, people with Addison's and groups for this. And then what happens when you get better? So I'm telling you, I've been there, like I understand, but a lot of times being a part of that and identifying is what's holding you back from getting well. And I know that that's not popular advice, but I have to let people know you've suffered long enough. You don't need to suffer with it anymore. You need to break your attachment to it because in the long run, those people who associate with whatever it is keep going back to whatever it is that keeps them in that position. Very, very important.
I even like to break the language. Like look at the relationship you have with your health and what words you use. Like I have, I have this disease. Like I have diabetes or whatever. And we could change our language to something to be very intentional. Like I am currently eating healthy so that my body regulates a healthy blood sugar. Like we could, I mean that sounds like a mouthful, but instead of
Oh,
walking
absolutely.
around with this victimhood, shift our language to be, well, what am I doing now to heal my body, and only talk about that. Like in terms of when we're just talking to ourselves, I am going for a walk because I am someone who's healthy who walks, right? And so using that identification language for health rather than, I have arthritis and therefore I can't run, so I can only walk. So,
Agreed. And that's why I quote one of these quotes I love. I can never pronounce his name, which I wish that I could. Maybe you know the pronunciation. It's Dr. Amelie Coué, I believe. And what he did was he gave a simple phrase to all of his patients that were considered, unable to get well, terminal. And it was every day in every way, I am getting better and better. This way, they didn't need to define how they were getting better, and it didn't mean that they were better today. All he said was every day and every way I am getting better and better. And he had them just repeat it all throughout the day.
oh, I
And
love
the
it.
stories of those recoveries are remarkable. A lot of times they did nothing different but repeat that phrase. And so I love sharing that with people just because it can't hurt. Like it honestly can't hurt to add that. And just like you said, whatever you add after the word I am defines you, and it most likely then defines your actions that you take during the day. So I am, someone that's getting better and better, or I am doing these things to get myself well. Always state it in the positive if you can.
Yes, excellent. I love it. Now, a lot of people who have autoimmune issues, so now they're in the middle of it, right? They may not even realize they've developed intestinal permeability from one of those causes, like taking a bunch of antibiotics. But then the intestinal permeability has led to candida or fungus or bacteria or H. pylori, whatever's messing up the gut, which is triggering inflammation and exacerbating the autoimmune. Uh, I've heard many people say that when they change their diet, even to just remove gluten, that so barley, wheat, rye, and in some cases even oats, or even go grain free altogether, that they see an improvement. Some people say they get 100% improvement. Some people they see 50% improvement. Um, why would just changing a diet in that way positively affect autoimmune conditions?
So grains are a big one, and that's why our initial we have something called the sensitive gut guide that we use with anybody on a gut based protocol, and that goes for most people with autoimmune. Is that it's multifactorial, meaning that with grains you have phytic acid and you have all sorts of different things that some people don't handle very well. Now, one of those could be because their gut is not balanced and they have intestinal permeability in the first place. Some people are more susceptible to it, but there's a big one called lectins. And I know that lectins is a popular topic right now. But the reason why some of these are important is that lectins can actually um, get that immune system fired up, which can then cause something called molecular mimicry. So in this case, one of the perfect examples is gluten. So gluten, like a lot of people might not react to oats and they might not react to quinoa or whatever it might be, but they react to gluten and they react to gliadin, the protein in gluten. So what happens is one of the molecules that's actually used for the thyroid looks similar in terms of its amino acid strand. So amino acids are just proteins, and they're basically chains of proteins together, like lysine, valine, isoleucine, all of the different amino acids. Well, what happens is if the immune system is triggered enough, meaning like this is you have to keep in mind, we're not eating gluten like maybe we were a couple hundred years ago. The strains are different, it's hybridized, but also we probably weren't eating it for like 3 or 4 meals a day. Like there's a huge difference as well. So now we're eating it. The immune system's being constantly triggered. We have a gut permeability. We also have a lot of other factors going on. And then it gets hardwired to look at gluten as a molecule or molecular structure that looks similar to the thyroid. And so it goes after the thyroid directly, which is why in a lot of cases of Hashimoto's, they cannot eat gluten and a lot of times dairy, sometimes even beans such as coffee as well. So when you remove those, all of a sudden the immune system then gets to calm down. And then there's no longer that immune based response, which triggers the Hashimoto's in the first place. So hopefully that made sense.
So someone who has Hashimoto's right now would benefit from trying a diet free of barley, wheat, rye, oats, all grains, even like rice and corn.
I would go grain free for 21 days. And then what you can do is you can do a rotation diet, you can do a challenge, and that would simply be after 21 days, go with gluten free grains first. So those would be your rice. If you want to go low lectin, you could even try white rice in the beginning. And I know a lot of people are going to say, oh, you can't eat white rice because it's high glycemic. Well, again, nobody usually eats a bowl of white rice alone. They're usually mixing it with whether it's proteins or fats or whatever it might be. And we can even talk about food combining if you really want to. And then you could try oats, and you have to get a gluten-free oat, such as a Bob's Red Mill, that's certified gluten-free because oats inherently do not contain gluten, but they're cross-contaminated in factories that have gluten on conveyor belts or in the air or whatever. So that's what I would do as a test. Now, I will say that that's a great thing to do. A lot of times it goes much deeper with Hashimoto's, meaning like heavy metals, low levels of selenium, low levels of iodine, cadmium, arsenic, potentially high levels of mercury that can affect the thyroid as well.
Oh yeah, by
And,
no means was going gluten free the root cause of clearing up Hashimoto's. Um,
but it
but
can
the
help
diet,
tremendously, like you said. Yeah,
right? So the diet you'd say is like an elimination diet. So cut out beans, like coffee beans, like all beans, pinto beans, black beans, black, all those kind of beans, and dairy from a cow, and grains. And I know that sounds like for the people who haven't done that diet, I know at first you're like, what do I eat? And I've done that diet, and I tell you, you can eat, there's so much to eat. Don't even worry about
so
it. Like
much.
there's so much you can eat. Um, it's not, it's actually, I find, and at the first I got kind of freaked out and scared, like doing, like eliminating these things. But then once I did, I realized it actually opened me up to discovering like all kinds of food I wasn't, because I was eating in a routine, like, eating rice all the time or eating bread or pasta all the time. And I kind of, or cheese or whatever, I kind of got into this one routine, this one like diet rut. And when I did this, like eliminating those pro-inflammatory foods, um, I just discovered this whole world. So like lots of paleo recipes out there, that would be, I guess paleo would be a good place to start because most paleo's dairy free
Sure. Yeah,
and
absolutely.
and
Well,
grain
paleo
free.
is essentially what we're talking about. Yeah,
Yeah. But you can even do like some people who are plant-based, you can do a plant-based paleo. But
absolutely.
um and so what kind of results do people see after and you said like a 21 days. I got to tell you, my husband and I, we committed to 7 days, and then on the 8th day doing a challenge day. By the 5th day, my husband said to me, "I'm not doing the challenge day. And sticking with this." And that was 7 years ago. So
Yeah, that's great.
we're like, we just felt within 5 days, we felt so good. Just cutting out, and we were just cutting out gluten. And then later on, we cut out dairy. And dairy was like really hard for us because we were addicted to cheese. And then we discovered later on that actually dairy has chemicals in it that make you addicted to it. And that makes sense because we want to encourage that baby. So in this case, it's the calf, but the same properties are in breast milk for the human baby. You want to trick the baby to eat and to crave that milk so it grows, right? So nature created and put it in breast milk or in cow's milk and all the kinds of milk out there for the infant to want to consume it. And so it makes sense that we're fighting an actual addiction to the pleasure that dairy gives us. And so going dairy free is a little tricky, but there's so many dairy-free options out there. We were worried about, like, my husband was worried about what to put in his coffee, and then we discovered nut pods, which is almond milk and coconut milk mixed together, and it's a perfect consistency of cream. Or go coffee free, but sometimes people can't do all these things at once, so baby steps. What kind of results do people see? Like in the first, like a month, let's say you've seen, how many patients do you think you've seen in the last 5 years putting them on this protocol, and what kind of results do they see after 1 month? And I get it's a slow and steady process, like you said, the first, big phase when they're on these disruptor supplements is like 12 weeks long. So we're looking at months and months and months, but if the person's been suffering for years, we have to expect it's going to take months to heal. But in month one, after month one, what kind of results do you get?
Yeah, we actually do see a noticeable change in 7 days. The only reason I said 21 is to really allow deep healing to sink in, meaning that what we do something called the Dr. Ball detox. But what we do is we're really talking about a paleo-based, more of a plant-based, paleo-based diet. We're allowing the body to re-regulate blood sugar, to decrease inflammation, to help a lot of women deal with estrogen dominance. We talked a little bit about PCOS earlier, and that just takes a little bit of time, but you should honestly feel tremendously better within 7 days. But it's that 21-day mark that the cravings are now gone. Like you talked about before, those brain chemicals, caseinomorphin as well as gliadomorphin in wheat, like those are pleasure chemicals right there. It
Mm-hmm.
stimulates the dopamine, the serotonin. So completely agree. And we just want to give the body a little bit of time. Um, we do about 20,000 appointments a year, and we've done over 250,000 appointments. Almost all of those have started with the 21-day elimination. Yeah, we get tremendous results with it.
So with that many people, give us an example. Can you think off? I mean, obviously not meant naming names, but I love hearing stories of success. Can you think about someone you worked with recently and what kind of results the he or she received?
So one of the main ones are people with inflammatory joint-based issues. So like they either feel stiffness or the body's just in a little bit of pain, and it kind of moves from the knee to the shoulder to the hip. And what we do is we eliminate the most common food triggers. So we're eliminating the grains in the beginning and the eggs, and we're eliminating dairy. And we're just, again, these are clinically proven, so they're used with kids with asthma and allergies and autism, and we know like they're their main food triggers. So what we try to do is we don't remove everything in the beginning. People can still have a cup of coffee in the morning, they can still have chickpeas and beans unless they feel that they cause them bloating. Then we can give them other options as well. So we're trying to decrease their total body burden, or it's called the total toxic load in the body. So we're trying to just lower that. And what we see is, yes, joint pain going away literally within 7 to 10 days. We see people drop. So the whole reason we started this thing is it's a functional medicine detox. And again, we just call ours the Dr. Ball detox, but you're welcome to work with a functional medicine doctor that works on ramping up what's called phase 1 and phase 2 liver detoxification. So it allows the body to remove the toxins from your bloodstream at such a much greater rate. And so the body sometimes drops 5 to 10 pounds in a week. And people are like, how is it possible I lost this much weight when I wasn't able to lose it doing keto or this or that? Well, it works different because we're not trying to help your body lose weight. What we're trying to do is get it really healthy. And because of that, it dropped inflammatory levels. Remember, if your body's inflamed, you hold on to a lot of water. Because you just think of it this way: if you get hit in the arm by, like let's just say you're playing baseball and you get hit with the ball in the arm or whatever, it hits a line drive at you, your arm swells. Well, it's going to swell, bringing white blood cells to the area. There's tissue destruction. It's bringing water to the area as well. And if your whole body's just kind of slightly inflamed, well, it's very easy to hold 3, 4, 5% extra toxic water weight, not hydration water, but actually toxic water weight that your body will happily eliminate once you reduce the inflammation. So we see really great weight loss. We see sugar cravings decrease. People improve sleeping within 7 days as well, because now they're stopping eating 2, 3 hours before bed. They're getting on an eating cycle. So they're not eating all day long. They're eating at four specific times every 3.5 hours. So yeah, I mean, I don't really, that is the place to start. I honestly believe, meaning that if you don't even think you're going to do, if it's going to work for you, that's okay. Just do it. It's honestly worth it to do a 21 day. And if you can't do a 21 day, do a 7 to 10 day. You'll feel a difference for sure.
Love it. Doing a challenge where we're eliminating grains, dairy, and beans because of the high lectins. And instead, what would you recommend they replace? What should they put on their plate instead that is the most healing? What are the most healing foods that are also kind of the most tolerated and gentle foods?
Yeah, so that's what it comes down to, right? Because now you have to eat something. So what we're typically doing is we're doing smoothies for breakfast, and the reason we recommend that is we want the body, when you first wake up. This is one of the big things with anybody with energy issues. You can't sit down to a heavy breakfast. You can't sit down to all these like chicken sausage and eggs. And I'm not against anyone who's preaching that, because it can work for body transformation. I'm talking about energy right now. 30% of all of our energy for the day goes towards digestion. One way to immediately get back your morning energy is to ask your body, yes, you want all the nutrients. You want all the plant-based nutrients from maybe like wild blueberries and maybe some spinach, and you can put in a little bit of coconut cream or whatever you'd like in there, and you can put in your, daily nutritional support powder, whatever you'd like. But if you ask your body not to use energy for digestion really for breakfast because it's pre-digested, you can have all that energy extra. That extra energy can then be used to work with the immune system to help heal the body. The nutrients will help heal the body. So then what we're talking about is your whole food meals, let's say just for lunch and dinner. I always say half your plate vegetables. Okay. No, we're not counting calories. Half your plate vegetables, choose one or two. And then a quarter of your plate you can choose as a root based vegetable. If you're not looking to lose weight, you can absolutely add in some yams and sweet potatoes and yuca. Any of those things are fantastic. And then you can choose a quarter of the plate to be protein. Now, this is where people can get into whether they want to do fish or animal protein or egg, or they want to do vegan based protein such as hemp hearts. Hemp hearts are one of my favorites to recommend because they're
Mm.
low in lectins, high in protein, high in fiber. They typically don't cause bloating. So they're a great food. Not hemp seeds, remember, it's hemp hearts. So they've already been kind of popped out of that shell. So they're easy to digest. And then use olive oil as a dressing, as a healthy monounsaturated, cancer preventing fat. So it's an easy way to design your meal. You still get to choose your favorite veggies and proteins, but now you have a template. And so then you get to choose. And one last point I'll recommend is try to go with cooked vegetables for the first week or two. I know it's not as easy to grab a salad on the run, but a lot of times people are eating salads and they're constantly bloated. And the reason is that their digestion is so weak that they're not able to break down leaves. And leaves are not easy to break down. It takes a lot of digestive juices and energy to break down raw food. I mean, meaning raw food from leaves, not raw food from fruit, but from leaves. So just as a test, again, everything is a trial. I call it, just doing a rotation diet, just testing out all of these theories. And you will eventually figure out what works for your body in the now. And then, of course, in the future, you can certainly then challenge it, like you spoke about before, with foods to see if they're actually an issue or not.
Absolutely. So you're saying for the first 2 weeks, eat cooked vegetables, and then you can start challenging yourself with raw, like eat cooked carrots, and then in a few weeks, test out a raw carrot, see how you fare. I would say leave raw broccoli to last because that is inherently gassy, and that may
If ever. Yeah.
that may make you think that you have a problem. You don't. Even healthy people who eat raw broccoli are gonna get a little gassy. It takes like an iron stomach to not be gassy. I'm currently easing into a raw being a raw vegan, and so learning how much raw food I can handle at once. Um Actually, surprisingly, I'm really happy with my digestion, and I've been eating lots of I mean, vegetables are a big part of my diet, but lots of fermented foods. What are your thoughts on fermented foods? Do you think people at this point should avoid them because like you said, if they have small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, they sort of already have too much bacteria? Would eating cultured foods do them a disservice, or would it help to heal their gut?
Yeah, that's correct. So what and I'm a certified GAPS practitioner, and I went through, all the different trainings and all of that. But what I look at is always clinical practice, and we have so much data. We have 20,000 appointments a year that we get to collect data on. So, we know it's working in the real world. And the problem is it's that now the amazing thing, right? The amazing thing is that fermented food sometimes doesn't contain just billions of bacteria; it contains trillions, right? So it's
Wow.
it's a lot. So what we're looking at is we're saying, okay, and that's why even for the GAPS based protocol, we're sometimes using a half a teaspoon, like that's it. We're just kind of like easing into it. But my recommendation first is that if you have gas, if you have bloating, if you have digestive issues, run an organic acids test, run a stool test if you can. If you can only run one, okay, do the organic acids test. Now, if you're in the clear, okay, then let's just rebalance the gut. We can do a probiotic, we can do fermented food, and again, there's a lot of great fermented foods. Like maybe cabbage doesn't work for you, but maybe you do fermented beets, or maybe you do, one of my favorite is fermented carrot and ginger. Like that can be a really nice one. So you can start there at a smaller amount, but definitely not if you have SIBO, definitely not if you have bacterial overgrowth. And the other contraindication, people like, because a lot of people, kombucha is very popular. Well, if you have histamine issues, they'll
Mm.
drive your histamine levels crazy. So that's why it's not an all for one. I know that, a lot of people love to promote fermented foods. And again, like I'm all for everything and sometimes not for everything. And that's because if I see someone with allergies or acid reflux or whatever, and you give them any type of smoked food, any type of aged food, any type of fermented food, it's just going to make them worse.
Absolutely. I've been helping my friend who is showing, I mean, he's normally a healthy person, like very athletic, not an ounce of fat in his body, that kind of thing. And yet I'm watching him, looking at his skin, I'm like, you have clear histamine issues. And so I got him on a low histamine diet, and there's even some natural supplements that I got him to take. And he's just texting me today, saying it works, oh my gosh, like all the flaky inflamed skin is going away, is all his other, sort of weird symptoms are going away. And then he went to a Russian birthday party last night, and pretty much all the food was histamine causing food, so now he's like in bed backlash, like completely backlashed.
Oh, that's
um
that's terrible.
it's just funny how when we start to get in tune with our body, we can really see, like, um in our early years, maybe in our 20s, we would drink, and then the next day we go, okay, this hangovers from drinking, right? But when you get in tune with your body, you kind of have food hangovers, right? You realize, whoa, those strawberries, I'm allergic to strawberries, I should not have eaten those yesterday. Or for me, it's bananas. Something that seems healthy for one person is not healthy for another. And in the future, my body may be totally fine with bananas, but right now I can't handle them, right? So it's a matter of always listening, and like you said, always challenging to see, where's my body right now. And especially for someone who's dealing with a series of issues, they're kind of mystery issues that they can't resolve, to do these tests just to either rule out, or discover that the root cause could be their that their intestinal permeability is at the root cause, or if someone has autoimmune, which is unfortunately a growing issue, an autoimmune conditions, and that if they do, then removing these foods right now is going to be the first step towards their healing. Now, you mentioned smoothies being their breakfast. Hemp hearts, you can get them at a lot of Costco's sell them, which is really cool. What else do you have a resource for smoothies, like a particular book or person, or do you have recipes for smoothies?
We
You
do. We have
mentioned.
a Yeah, we have a downloadable smoothie guide that's just completely free. We do one for greens, like make your own, and we do a smoothie one that maybe you just can link up at the show notes. It's just stevencabral.com is there, and then I do give one recipe in my book, which is called I call it my purple crush smoothie, and the reason I call it that is like I grew up pretty unhealthy, meaning like I grew up drinking Kool-Aid and eating Little Debbie snacks and eating those, pink coconut Twinkies and all that different type of stuff. And my favorite soda, because I drank soda every day, was the Fanta Purple Crush. They don't make it anymore. I don't think they make it anymore. And so now I call this my new smoothie, my Purple Crush, and I've been drinking it for over a decade. And it's literally like I always tell people, make a smoothie enjoyable. Like you're doing something really healthy for your body. If you're worried about weight gain or blood sugar, you can do really low glycemic fruit. You can do wild blueberries, which is pretty much like all skins. You can put in veggies. You can add whatever you'd like to it. You can even make it fruit free if you want. I mean, there's some great recipes that we do as well, just to kind of make like a mocha type smoothie. But yeah, so that one is just wild blueberries. I throw in some spinach. I use this thing called Daily Nutritional Support Powder, which is just all your vitamins, and it's vegan-based protein, so it's pea and rice-based. That even people with FODMAP issues are fine with because it's only the protein, not the carbs. And then little coconut cream, a little bit of water, and again, but you can do like I'm sure you're at this point too, where you can palate and tolerate a lot of things that other people wouldn't.
Yeah.
So in the beginning of your journey, like throw in stuff that you're gonna be able to drink and that you enjoy, and then you can kind of make it even healthier in the future.
Right, exactly. I mean, I have a Vitamix, so I could probably, I don't know, make a smoothie out of a spatula. I mean, you could put
Yeah,
anything in that thing. And I've definitely made smoothies that were like liquefied salad. I mean, it was just disgusting. But you get good at it, especially with herbs, playing around with cilantro being such an amazing herb for healthfully removing heavy metals from the body. And it also makes smoothies so delicious, especially green smoothies. And I love the resource of having Costco. Many Costco's, just depends on, I guess, the location, but many Costco's have in their produce section have organic greens, like a big, bag of super greens, very affordable for about $4, this giant bag. And you can take that, and then you can also buy frozen organic blueberries from
yep,
Costco, or they have a mix of different organic, their antioxidant blend, which has all kinds of great fruit in there. And that then you can start there, and then like grab, they have some either canned coconut cream or they have almond milk, both organic, and then go to town, and so that's a good place to start. And then, oh, grab their hemp hearts while you're there too, organic, of course. So then you've got that smoothie. So smoothies are great breakfast, and my advice would be make a huge smoothie, and it's because some people think, oh my gosh, it's 20 ounces, I'm going to be hungry in an hour. It's like it's okay to make a 30-ounce smoothie,
yeah.
and carry around a mason jar with you for in 90 minutes when you're hungry again. It's okay to drink a giant or smoothie, 40-ounce smoothie, drink it all day long because it's probably only 500 calories. If it's a pound of vegetables, that's just like 2 to 300 calories. So if you got some fruit in there also, then you're definitely not reaching beyond 500 calories unless you like pour an entire can of coconut cream in there. So you can make them delicious, absolutely nutritious, full of antioxidants. But you'd mentioned not to do raw vegetables. Is it okay that they put the raw greens in their smoothie?
So for me, raw vegetables are always just about digestion. So if you're going to blend them up in a Vitamix or Blendtec or high speed Ninja, then you're good to go in my opinion. Now again, you have to test that. So in my practice, we test everything. We just because a lot of people come to us and just say, you know what, I've tried everything. You're my last stop. And we want to respect that. We also want to respect that people is like all of this takes time, and so we want to get it right. So what we do typically the first day is we'll just do, like we do a shake powder, but we do powder and water. If that works, great. Then we add the blueberries, and if that works, great. Then we'll add the coconut milk or coconut cream, and we don't do all of it. We agree we do 20 ounces of fluid, and that's the minimum. And then we'll add the coconut cream or coconut oil if that works, great. And then we'll add the greens in, and then if you're like, "Oh, no, it works except for the greens," well, then the greens didn't work for you, and then you could just try a
Right.
different vegetable.
Right, or the
So it's all about
coconut
testing them.
oil. The coconut oil, I mean, a lot of people who don't have a gallbladder or just don't even have gallbladder function optimally, even a little bit of MCT oil would cause them to have diarrhea.
For sure. Yeah, for sure.
Unfortunately, I know that from personal experience. And so I like that you're testing one ingredient at a time, because I think that if someone just had diarrhea from a smoothie filled with a bunch of really great stuff, they might go, smoothies don't work.
Or in general, like if you're not used to drinking smoothies, like it could be a laxative for you. So you should start slow. It doesn't mean that your body doesn't need it, just like you were saying, but the ingredients can be switched out. You could use an avocado if you want. You could use, and again, like I do believe in food combining, but the difference with the smoothie is that we've literally turned this into baby food. Like we've just pre-digested it, and it's this just giant smoothie with. I honestly believe they're life changing. I really do, and I'll tell you why. Most people don't drink any water. Like they stop drinking water at
Mm.
like 7 o'clock at night, if that. Then they wake up in the morning, they don't drink water, they drink coffee. And then they might have water maybe mid morning or maybe not till lunch. So we're talking
Yep.
like more than half a day without fluid. So I believe people's their energy, their joint pain, their mind clarity will change when they're super hydrated. And remember, your body absorbs water better when it has minerals in it. And you get minerals from your produce, so your fruits and your veggies. So that's why I'm a huge proponent. I haven't seen anything work better in my practice. And if you can only do one thing, and it's again, it's not going to cost you more than your regular breakfast, and it's going to be so much healthier for you. And I also want to say one more thing: your tip of using the frozen is great because a lot of times frozen berries are better than regular berries because they're picked ripe and then they're frozen immediately. So you're getting fruit that was actually ripe at the time, and you're getting all the powerful nutrients from that. Plus, you never have to worry about going to the grocery store all the time because you can just keep it in your freezer.
Mm-hmm. I mean, fresh is great too when it's in season, when it's local, when it's, organic. I'd rather make something convenient and have it be like 1% less healthy than, make it 1% more healthy and that person doesn't end up doing it. Right. So
Agreed.
we've got to
Yep,
make it so that
absolutely.
people do it. Dr. Molly Niedermeyer, who was the dean of Bastyr University, the naturopathic college here, she was on the show saying that when we are dehydrated even 5%, that it will decrease our energy by 25%. That's how important water is.
I completely agree, and I don't even know if it would take 5%. I completely believe that she's right. I just know that when I'm working with an athlete, during we because we can look at this during their game, their performance, their match, whatever it is. If we look at dehydration levels, because you can weigh someone during their match and you can see, let's say the person's 150 pounds, if they lose 3 pounds, they're already 2% dehydrated. And you can
Mm-hmm.
actually see the performance start to dip. It's almost like the reaction time, which needs to be like milliseconds, has gone up to a second. That can make all the difference in performance. But it's the same for cognition during the day. And think about it, like, a lot of people are tired after lunch. They're eating foods that are hard to digest. They're incompatible. They're not hydrated enough for the first half of the day. They're over caffeinated in the morning. Now they're crashing. So, food really is the best medicine. It honestly is. And you can take all the supplements in the world. You can do all the different biohacks and all that. But if you're not looking to nutrition first, then you're always going to be fighting an uphill battle.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So after the smoothies the giant smoothie we get to drink all morning long, what does lunch look like for someone who is avoiding these foods? The grains, the dairy, and the beans.
Yeah, so that would be using the template earlier. And if we put some foods in that template, we would say, okay, we're going to do, let's say, cook carrots and cook celery. And that could just be good to get some mineral salts back in their body. Or one of my favorite is cooked rainbow carrots and parsnips. So I love root vegetables. I think that they're delicious any time of the year, but of course, fall and winter, even better. But it could be something as simple as, okay, I want to get something green on my plate. So I'm going to do 5 asparagus spears, and I'm going to do bok choy. Again, bok choy is another one of my favorites. So you're cooking it. That's a leafy green, and then that's your veggies. And now I'm going to do a half of a sweet potato. I'm not going to eat the skins because the skins have the lectins on them. And on that sweet potato, I'm going to put some cinnamon, some Himalayan sea salt, and then I'll add olive oil over my vegetables and my sweet potato as well. So now you have a delicious sweet potato that's almost like a candied yam. And then you're going to do a protein. And then for protein, it could be, if we're not going to do beans, again, like we don't always eliminate beans in the beginning because we don't want to make it too restrictive. But if you get bloating from beans, well, now we remove them. One other easy thing to do is simply to make a black bean soup on the side. So now you've lowered your lectin count. You've removed the skins essentially by blending it just in a Vitamix if you want. Again, your Vitamix can make the black bean soup. And then on top, you might just put some sliced avocado. Like that is an amazing meal right there. And like you will be satiated, and you'll feel it's delicious, and you'll look like a gourmet chef even though you didn't really do too much.
And also, this is a trick I learned from a Dr. Esselstyn, Caldwell Esselstyn, who wrote the book about, basically reversing heart disease. And he was on the show, and he said he recommends people eat, 6 to 8 cups of leafy green vegetables every day, and he prescribes his patients to have them every few hours. To take leafy greens and just blanch them, either throw them in you can steam them or throw them in hot water for 15 to 20 seconds, and that way they're not like completely like mush, right? They still got a bit of firmness, but they're nicely cooked. And then he says sprinkle your vegetables with balsamic vinegar, because there's an acid in the balsamic vinegar that heals the endothelial lining of the arteries. How cool is that? And it also makes your vegetables taste really, really good. And I never liked balsamic vinegar until he told me to try that. And then I discovered that there's like a million kinds of balsamic vinegars out there, and some of them taste like candy, and they're delicious and they're really healthy for you.
Sounds great. Yeah, the only I mean, and again, like the acid from the vinegar will also help you with digestion in general.
There you go.
So it could be like apple cider vinegar, balsamic vinegar. But the only people we wouldn't use that for, just in my practice, would be anyone dealing with digestive-based issues like candida overgrowth, bacterial overgrowth, because it can feed the bacteria as well and cause histamine issues.
So that's good to know. So, is it because it's a fermented food, or how? Why is it that
Aged, fermented, and contains some prebiotic qualities. Now, it does not contain the fructans like the other vegetables would, but fermentable enough that yeast can live off of them.
got it? Right, that's part of the anti-candida diet for sure. So,
But I guess it's not forever, right? It's for
right.
somewhere around 6 to 12 weeks, and then yeah, I mean, challenge these things. Like again, Bragg's apple cider vinegar, balsamic vinegar. You mix with that with a little olive oil and herbs. You have your own little Italian dressing. So yeah, people can do again like some really amazing things with food to make it taste great.
And what would you say would be a good dinner?
Well, again, we'd use that same template, and I would allow people. So if the person's trying to lose weight, we won't do the starch at dinner. We'll do extra vegetables or sprouts. So we haven't talked about sprouts. Sprouts can be easy to digest. They can be amazing in terms of texture and crunch. Add a little olive oil, a little sea salt, shake them up in a little bag if you want. That's a great way to give them a lot more taste, because sometimes veggies in general can be a little bit bitter. That will change that. So some of my favorite are mung bean sprouts or sunflower sprouts. All of those are great. And then a protein, well, you can choose, again, this is your time. If you're vegan, you're going to choose your vegan-based protein, which again would be beans, legumes. Another one we use in Ayurveda all the time was mung dal, or split mung beans. So they're
Mm-hmm.
split, so they're missing basically, or the shell's cracked in half. So they're easier to digest. Another way to make beans easier to digest to lower that lectin count and phytic acid is to soak them or sprout them or both. And that's a great way. Again, you can turn them into soups. And then we'll choose, again, so you can do shrimp, or you can do, again, but shrimp's a tough one to recommend because of how, like, what they're doing to shrimp right now is pretty bad, meaning
Yes.
that they're pumping them full of, we'll just call them liquids to make them look bigger. And so shrimp really has to be wild if you're going to get that. But let's just say you're getting a clean fish like sardines. If you're willing to eat fish, sardines are one of the best food that you can eat. And the reason is that they're the highest, like by far, nothing even comes close for omega 3s. So even if you just did 2 or 3 sardines, like that would be your omega 3s would go through the roof. They're a smaller fish. They're going to be lower in mercury. You can get them boneless and skinless, which makes them more palatable to eat. But again, a lot of people I work with are vegan or moving that way. And so we'll just do a different type of protein, because I don't want you to eat the same proteins at every meal. So if you had hemp parts at lunch, it's going to be hummus or chickpeas or black beans or mung dal or something like that at dinner. And then again, switch out your vegetables.
And someone who's not plant-based, they can choose, any animal to eat, as long as it's organic and grass-fed, or what are your guidelines around that?
Yeah, that's a great question, because we don't do red meat for the first 28 days. And that's because of the myriad of other issues that can go along with red meat. Now, I understand you can get grass fed and you can get green finished, and that's what you should do if you're eating red meat for sure. But there's other factors in play that can inflame the body, and there's actually sugars, believe it or not, in red meat that can inflame the body. Um, new GC is one of them specifically. But what I'm looking at is if you're going to get poultry like chicken or turkey, just try to get it pasture based. And if you're going to get fish, try to get it wild caught as able. If you're going to do eggs, you want them pastured based as well. You don't want just organic. And the reason is that they feed these animals organic soy, they feed them organic corn, they feed them organic whatever. And that's not necessarily right for their diet. And so organic doesn't always mean best. Pastured means best for poultry and eggs, and grass fed is best for cows because that's the natural food that they should be given. And that's not meaning, again, cows cannot eat grains nor can they eat soy. That's not their human diet. And it makes them sick, which is why over 50% of all the antibiotics in this country,
Ugh,
in the United States, are given to cows, which is just deplorable, right? Because
it's
they'd be
so
dead if,
bad.
if they had the diet that they're eating. So we
It's
can't
so
eat
sad.
animals that are dying, essentially. That's the wrong thing to do.
Right, exactly. And bison cannot live off of grains, and so they would die if they were fed what cows are fed. And so bison naturally are grass fed, grass finished.
That's
So,
so bison's actually, yeah, that's a great, you're right. That's a great choice if you're going to do that. Lamb can be healthier.
mhm.
But again, not a lot of people are going to eat lamb. So again, there's like draw depending on who you're speaking with. But at the same time, you can't get overwhelmed with the process. I want you to get healthy first. And then just like you and I have done, refine your diet after that.
Yes. Absolutely. And what about those who really don't know how to cook? I mean, just so many people, like my grandparents were great at cooking, and my parents did not want to learn. And so I think it was like it's been about two generations of people who have not gotten into the kitchen. I was born with a love of cooking. I was a kid watching like a child as a child I watched cooking shows. Like I love to cook, and I thought everyone did until I met most of my friends don't. They just eat out at almost every meal. I'm sure you see this because you've seen so many clients, so many patients. What are some recommendations? So now you've given them sort of a challenge for the next 21 days of what to eat, what not to eat. But any more advice you could give them for those who really don't do a lot of cooking at home?
Yeah, so I guess there's like a huge difference whether the person doesn't know how to cook and they don't like to cook because you, I'm sure, could teach someone who is okay with cooking. They just don't know how to cook in like a day. Like meaning like not as difficult as long as you know how to like really chop up and cut the food properly. You can put it in an oven and just watch it to make sure it doesn't burn, and you'll probably do okay. Whether you set it at 325 or 350 or 370, like you'll be probably okay. You won't be the best chef, but that's okay. It's a start. And then, we're not big on cooking in oil in my practice, and the reason is that it pretty much make most oils become rancid. And again, you can make a defense for coconut oil and grass-fed butter, but then you have to make the argument like, should we be eating that much saturated fat in general? And again, you can make the arguments yes or no because of that.
Right.
We won't get into that today. But in general, oil or your fats, they can be used as a topping afterwards, like your olive oil, your avocado oil, which are monounsaturated fats. If you want to add some ghee, that could be healing for the intestines as well. And of course, that should be grass fed. But if you could do what I do, and again, like I'm not a chef by any means, but what we do in my family is this: we literally I make a smoothie for myself, or we make smoothie bowls for my two young girls. That's how they get in their nutrition in the morning, and we can put a little bit of whatever we want to top it. We make them part of the process, so they make like an acai bowl or a dragon fruit bowl, which is bright pink. It's beautiful. I have two girls, so they love that. And then at lunch I eat out. So I don't bring lunch, but I know my location and I can get the template that I just described earlier. And then for dinner, a lot of times, yeah, we're going shopping, we're going for those things, but we order from a company called Sunbasket a couple times a week. And they literally deliver an organic, and you get plant-based and get whatever you want meal. And it's essentially frozen, or it's prepped for you. And then all you have to do is literally follow the directions. And I don't own any stock in Sunbasket, but right now, to my knowledge, they're one of the healthiest ones out there, and they deliver it right to your door. And then you can learn to cook, and you can cook in under
Yes.
30 minutes. So I don't know if you've had any experience with that, but my wife and I think it's pretty great for the most part.
It's really awesome. I have not personally done it, but well, like a lot of these, there's been several of them on Shark Tank, and I've just been plugged into that because I've hired the companies that will bring food made for you to your door. like Chef by Request and stuff like that. I've experienced those, and what's great about those ones, if they're available in your area, is that you can choose the calories. So if you want 1500 or 2000 or 2500, whatever your needs are, and then you choose the diet. So you can choose paleo and gluten free, dairy free, or you can go grain free, or you can choose the diet, and they're very a lot of those companies that bring already made food to your home every few days in these little, unfortunately, plastic containers, is that they are able to follow your diet. And then I've seen this sort of hybrid, which is they're going to deliver food to your door that isn't made. You have to do it yourself, but like you said, it teaches you how to cook, and I was just interviewing a father whose kids wouldn't eat anything healthy, and yet when they had this service, the same one you're mentioning, come to their house, he gave to his 9-year-old, he gave the recipe card to the kid and said, "Okay, you're gonna make dinner tonight." And she looked at him like, "What?" She's like putting down her Nintendo, like looking at him like, "You're crazy." He's like, "No, I trust you. You're gonna make dinner. Here's the card." And she did it, and he said she would have never, if I had made that food, she would have never eaten it, but because she made that food, she ate it and she loved it, and it transformed her relationship with food. And the fact that I in ha transferred confidence over to her, like I showed her I was confident in her, and then she wasn't confident in herself, but she had the recipe card, and he looked at it and he goes, "I know my 9-year-old can do this." And so that's when I heard that, I was like, that is the coolest thing. Like at first I was kind of like poo-pooing it, like that's silly. Why can't people just go to the grocery store, buy stuff and find a recipe online? Like why do they have to pay this company to send them the exact amount of food with a recipe card? But now I get it, that it's really making it so much easier for them and the whole family to get together and learn how to cook and also enjoy it. It becomes an event and an experience. And now I'm seeing these ads for if you're single and you're looking to create a fun date experience with your date, that you can actually like hire these companies to send you like a bunch of food with the recipe card plus other date activities that come with it. So it becomes like a whole evening with you and your date
Yeah.
at home. So I mean that's really cool because now we're finally getting back to being interested in being a part of our food again.
I mean, I really believe that those are all the tricks, meaning that with kids, you have to get them involved in the process. And to get people to eat healthier, you have to make it so convenient in the beginning. And then after that, they'll kind of walk up that ladder, right? They'll take the next rung. So around us, we have farmers markets on Tuesdays and Saturdays. And so on those days, we can actually go get local vegetables from our local community, like the farms. Now in Boston, obviously, there's no farms local, but an hour outside the city, there's some great farms in Western Massachusetts, and they'll bring their local produce, and then we can talk with the farmers, and we know that it's fresh and all these great things. But I'll tell you, and I know it's becoming more popular, but when you do a service like the one that I just mentioned, you can choose wild, fish, and you can choose those specific things, and in a lot of communities, they don't even offer that. Like you just don't even have that choice, like to be able to go to your local grocer and try to get healthy food because, I've been in a lot of the communities. And so sometimes in terms of price and in terms of convenience, you can't beat it. But then at the same time, as we're both saying, see what you can do, walk your way up that ladder. What's the next run? Can you go to a farmer's market where you can get not only organic, but you can get local organic, fresh produce. And then, I mean, you'll notice the difference when you eat local organic, or even grow it yourself. You will notice the difference in taste for sure.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Before so back in January, my husband went 100% plant-based. And I am about 95% plant-based at this point. Um, I think the last thing to go are eggs, and I'm just easing into this completely plant-based. And it's not because I think everyone should eat this way. Just to be clear, I think everyone should experiment with different ways of eating to find the most healing for them. And for me, I'm surprising myself with how great I feel because I was such a meat eater. I love meat. I love it, love it, love it. But actually eating lots and lots of plants is I really thought I'd just be hungry all the time, and it's the opposite. I mean, I had for lunch a quarter, I mean these those little tiny Um, uh, Watermelons the size of your head, like the really small ones. Because I'm used to, growing up as a kid, we only had the giant ones, right? That would feed like an entire family. Well, we got this one of these little watermelons, and we cut it up, and my 3-year-old and I shared half of a watermelon. So I think of these tiny watermelons. So I had like a quarter of a watermelon, that's not even good on the glycemic index. And I feel amazing, and I'm not hungry. And it's interesting. I'm just experimenting and seeing where's my energy at, where's my mental clarity, how do I feel a few hours from now. So I think everyone should do that, experiment and see how they feel. And we have to try a totally different diet to know if diet was the cause of our issues. Just because I this is how the way I've always been eating, therefore it couldn't possibly be my diet because I've always eaten this way, isn't actually scientific. We have to experiment. Um, so I love what you're discussing. I love that you're helping so many people with natural medicine. How long does it take? So out of the, do you say 20,000 people a year that come to see your clinic? What's this? Do you have a success rate? Is it 100% success rate? Can you give us just an ideas to, I mean, obviously everyone's coming in with totally different health issues. But what does it look like to go to your clinic? What kind of percentage would I have? What kind of percentage chance wise would I have if I was a sick person coming to your clinic?
I honestly believe that if you go to see a naturopathic doctor who's been in practice for a number of years, they've seen thousands of people, and they've worked with people such as yourself before, you have a 100% chance of getting well. I honestly believe that if you're not willing to give up and that you're willing to say, okay, because success is not a straight line. So that's why we never do one consultation with someone. We always do three. That's the minimum. And the reason we say that is that we're doing your intake the first time. We're running functional medicine lab testing. We're going over the results of what those mean for you, so that you actually know what the data means. Someone's going to explain it to you, and then we give you your plan. But then we just say, okay, we'll see you later. We then do a follow up after that. We're making adjustments to your plan. We're taking your email feedback to see what tweaks need to be made. Because remember, everything that is wrong with you right now, whether it's wellness, weight gain, or some type of aging based issue, is some type of deficiency or it's some type of toxicity. By running lab tests, we can find out what your deficiencies are, we can find out what your toxicities are, and then it's simply a matter of rebuilding the body through replacing those deficiencies and removing the toxicities. Now, keep in mind, it's clinically proven that it takes about 6 weeks or so to remove heavy metals from the body and doing it from a natural based treatment, right? Doing things like cilantro and correct cell chlorella and vitamin C and biofilm disruptors. And it takes about 8 to 12 weeks to remove all of the yeast overgrowth and the bacterial overgrowth. So we see in our practice somewhere between the 21-day mark, people are feeling significantly better only because we've started to kind of empty those symptoms, empty that rain barrel, as I say. And then by 12 weeks to 16 weeks, the body is truly beginning to repair and rejuvenate. And that's when the majority of the symptoms are now gone. Now, are they completely better? No, but they feel it. And so that's a dangerous spot. We have to let people know you can't just slide back to eating the way you were eating before, even though you feel better. And that's because after 120 days, all the red blood cells in the body turn over. So you get new mitochondria after 4 months. And those new mitochondria, we hope that you get, 25% more, 30% more, whatever it might be. So now you have more energy production. You have all these different things. But at the same time, if you go back to the lack of sleep and the eating the chips and all of those things. And again, once a week, no big deal. Twice a week, okay, maybe okay, but not every day. And so, that's what we're trying to also re-educate. And that's a big
Mhm.
part of what we do is simply teaching, because I believe if we didn't do any of the teaching, our success rate wouldn't be that great. And of course, if you give up because you just say, you know what, I can't do it this time in my life, or it's not a priority. The problem is a lot of times it's just not a priority, meaning like it would be nice if they got well, they say to themselves, but I'm not willing to give up the going out drinking 4 nights a week. I'm not willing to do this, this, and this. And then what we can try to do is we can just try to balance your life, right? But you're not going to get completely better because you're still drinking 4 nights a week, and like that's a tough one to overcome because then you're not getting quality sleep. You're taking in a lot of fructose, a lot of this, this, and this. So anyway, that's kind of in a nutshell. I couldn't give you a percentage, but I always say to people, like, we're not going to let you fail. Like, that's the bottom line. Like, you're
Mm-hmm.
going to give up on us before we give up on you.
But in terms of, do you see people feeling like they're 100% better in 6 months and 2 years? What's the kind of the average time?
100% better within 12 to 16 weeks.
Love it. I love it. And it makes so much sense to not go back to the old lifestyle that caused this. I laughed because I've had several clients do this where I help them with, supplements and diet, for example. And then they kind of complain a few weeks later that they're in more pain than ever, right? Because they're, older and they have arthritis. I'm not saying being old is, causes arthritis, but this is just their grandparents, they have arthritis, and I particularly have seen this in basically grandparents with arthritis. And so they're like, my knees are flaring, my knees hurt so much, I can't believe it. Like, what's going on? This program's not working. And I asked them, well, what did you do the last few days? They're like, well, I've been babysitting my grandchildren, and I ran around with them and chased them. We went to the park. And I said, were you able to do that a few weeks ago? And they said no. I said, so, you're feeling so much energy from your diet now, and from like this newfound energy from your diet and some supplements. And you feel really good, and then you decided to use all that energy running around. And you haven't ran, or you haven't ever been able to chase your grandkids, and so you're now feeling your knees hurt because you were basically getting exercise. And
Yeah, that's
they're like, "Oh." I'm like, "So it's not my program that caused your knees to hurt. It's my program gave you energy, and you use the energy in a way that, you have to work your way up to it, right? Or wait for the knees to start healing themselves." But do you see that where a lot of people kind of come back going, I'm feeling sore, and then you're like, "Well, why do you feel sore?" It's because I ran a marathon, because I have so much energy on your program.
for sure. And like that's always the bane of natural health practitioners practice, because that's why we do a big intake as well. We have all the notes and like, do you remember when you were feeling this and this? Like, oh yeah, I guess I was like. That's what we like. The human body adapts very quickly, and so does the mind. So that's the great thing about it. But the funny thing is, then you create a new normal, like meaning that
Yeah.
people find new things that are wrong because the old things are now gone. And the new things are so minor. They're like, you know what, I think my energy was maybe a little low yesterday afternoon. I'm like, you think it was like, so we kind of like just joking around, because by then, if you're saying I think it was a little low, and this person used to have chronic fatigue or whatever, you can make a joke about it, because you know what, and I tell people, no matter what, like, I mean, I feel great, like I feel better every single year, but at the same time, like, I still have off days. It doesn't mean I'm sick, and it doesn't mean I'm depressed or anything's wrong with me. Like, those things are in the past. But it just means like I'm human, and sometimes I get a little less sleep. Sometimes my daughter might be up during the night, and sometimes I'm more stressed at work. Like, I'm just human. That's called part of the human condition. And it's not a bad thing. It's when it lasts like 3 days, 4 days, a week, or 2 weeks that it becomes an issue. But every once in a while, you're allowed to have a bad day. It's okay.
Now you mentioned the rain barrel effect, and this is the name of your book. Can you dive into this concept, especially when it relates to weight?
Absolutely. So the rain barrel effect it's essentially, it explains how people get sick and how it doesn't happen overnight. So the first half of the book is dedicated to how people get sick and we accumulate, right? Our bodies accumulate it. The rain barrel is something that catches water. And so basically the gutters of a house can run off in some places into this thing which catches the water. And you don't want it to just flow off out of the gutters, because it can destroy your grass in your backyard and all of these things. But no one ever checks in the rain barrel to see how full it's getting. So what happens is, over time it starts to accumulate the stress toxins, the hormone toxins, the food toxins, the 77,000 man-made chemicals in the environment that can cause cancer. We know that they cause cancer. And so all of a sudden, then one day we end up with, we talked about before, the cancer, the Hashimoto's, the rheumatoid arthritis, the MS, the migraines, the skin rash, the rosacea, the alopecia, the whatever. And they say, I don't know how it happened. Well, it didn't happen overnight. It's been accumulating, whether you're a child, whether you're a teenager like I got sick, or whether you're an adult. Maybe you're in your 40s, 50s, or 60s. Like, well, I just feel the effects of getting old. No, you feel the effects of accumulating toxicity and really your body getting worn down by losing and basically creating deficiencies in B vitamins and minerals like magnesium. And so that the book, the first half talks about how we get sick, and the second half of the book talks about how we repair the body. And that's what I do in my practice. My goal, actually, towards the end of this year, is to begin teaching. It's to really begin, and I do this in my podcast every day, but begin teaching other health practitioners and doctors and anybody who's really willing to listen how to repair the body. And we both kind of dance around it, but as a naturopathic doctor, I have I have 8 parts to my protocol. It's called the de-stress protocol. Only one part is supplements. Like that's it. You don't. If you come in with high cholesterol, I don't give you something like a vitamin B3, niacin for your high cholesterol. That's called green medicine. I don't do that. I figure out and I try to help you why the high cholesterol. And if we want to talk about weight gain, you come into me and you say, okay, I'm already eating only 1,600 calories a day. I'm exercising like 3 or 4 times a week. And I say, okay, well, people need to stop telling you and you need to stop believing that it's a calorie issue or an exercise issue. Meaning that if you go and you drop another 200 calories a day and you're only eating 1,400 calories a day and you exercise another day a week, do you really think that's going to make a difference? No, like you're already dropped your calories. You're already exercising. More exercise and less food is only more of a recipe for disaster. So now we need to look at, we know exercise is not the issue. We know nutrition is not the issue. So we need to look at the quality of the food that you're eating. We need to look at hormone imbalances such as estrogen dominance. We need to look at toxicities, whether it's gut toxicities, might be high cortisol levels, which is also lowering your thyroid. So, what we talk about is that we've been told for too long in this culture that if we're tired, it's because we're lazy, or we're depressed. If we're depressed, it's, well, we're just not, we're not in the right mindset. If we're overweight, it's because we eat too much or we don't move enough. Well, I can just tell you from seeing people in my practice that most people are trying to eat well. They are trying to move their body, but then they get frustrated because they're doing that for months and nothing's working. So sure, then they go back to eating and not exercising because they already tried it. And the problem was that for the most part, if you've already been eating well, you've already been moving your body, we're really looking at a toxicity issue. Okay, your body's inflamed, it's holding on to toxic water weight, or it's a hormonal issue dealing with some type of level of stress in the body that it believes it's in a survival-based state, that the body's holding on to more nutrients, it's holding on to more of everything because it's afraid to burn that. And you're not in the parasympathetic, which is where all the healing takes place, which is where a lot of that fat burning percentage is taking place. Again, there are other issues. There could be toxicity like heavy metals. There could be, again, blood sugar based issues. But a lot of times those are endocrinology based issues, meaning hormone based issues. So it can get deep. But honestly, what I did in the book, in the Rain Barrel Effect, I just took you step by step through the process. I gave you the ability to just start to implement through nutrition, like the diet plan that we talked about. That's in the book. Or you might take it to the next level, which is using some of the nutritional supplement protocols or doing the detox, or take it to the last level, which is really starting to run lab testing. And I honestly believe people need to enter themselves into the equation with which they feel they're ready for. Don't do anything more than you're ready for. If it's the food, great, start with a smoothie in the morning. And if it's a supplement protocol, well, maybe you're going to do the Candida bacterial overgrowth protocol. And if you just say, I'm fed up with it, I just want to look at my lab numbers to figure out what's going on inside my body, then you'll run the labs. And so that's what we try to do for people. And again, however I can help, that's what I try to do.
Awesome. Now, um, you let me know that you set up a link for our listeners so that they can get your book. They can buy these labs that they can do in their own home. And if they're also interested in your supplements, so they don't actually have to come to Boston. Is that my understanding, that people around the world could go through this protocol, could read the book, order the labs to do at home, buy the supplements. They could also work with you, what, through Skype? How does that work?
That's correct. So what I realized was that obviously there's time limitations. So there's no way that I would be able to see everyone that I would love to see. So what we did was, at that site, you can do a digestion test, organic acids test, a food sensitivity test. I mean, you name it, the labs are there. We ship them to you pretty much anywhere in the world. Right now, we're shipping to Australia, the UK, Canada, the US. We'll soon be shipping to Europe in a few months. And what happens is, I can easily read 100 labs a week, no problem. I just can't speak with 100 people. So what I do is I read all the labs, I make the recommendations, and then you speak with one of my certified health coaches that then take you through what your labs mean and your plan. So it's basically a hybrid model. And of course, we do see people in Boston, and we see people through Skype one on one. But if you order the lab test, you get a lab coach, you get a coaching call already included it with you, and then they do that over Skype again anywhere in the world. So we found that to be highly successful. We offer a support group along with it, and then you just get everything you need. That's the best case scenario. But again, a lot of other people might want to just start with the diet plan, the elimination that we talked about, and that's called the Dr. Cabral detox. And that's again, we design that in a way for people to get essentially 80% of the results that they would get by following maybe even a larger protocol. So what I'm trying to say is we're willing to work with you in any way that you feel comfortable with and meet you with where you're at, which I'm trying to teach a lot of health practitioners out there that you can't be so rigid in how you're willing to work with people. Sometimes they need to start at that first rung and just kind of do it on their own and work their way up.
Awesome. And the link for the listeners, I was told, was stephencabral.com/Ashley. That link will be in the show notes of today's podcast. So those who want to buy the book, buy the labs, and of course, when they buy the labs, they also get, like you said, that one-on-one with one of your health coaches, and then they can go further on to buy the supplements, part of your program, should they wish to do that. It's great because it helps them to at least rule this out if they are dealing with a lot of health issues. Like you said, you had type 2 diabetes and chronic adrenal fatigue and several other issues. But if someone just is kind of like hasn't even been diagnosed with those issues, but they have all these symptoms, it'd be really great for them to do these labs to rule out that this is or isn't the root cause. It would be very empowering to discover that it is or isn't, because then it's like, okay, at least we know, and that knowledge will then guide their plan. Because if it is their problem, then shifting their diet could be the most powerful thing. Just diet alone, like you said, 95% is diet, environment, and lifestyle, and there's no amount of pharmaceutical drugs or herbs or supplements that's ever going to heal them if the diet is wrong. If the because the, it's an uphill battle, just like you said.
That's right. And honestly, if you're able to, the lab testing gets rid of that gray area. Well, maybe I should use this supplement. Maybe I should do that diet. Maybe this food's good for me, or maybe it's not. It just ends the kind of the frustration that a lot of people have been dealing with for years. If you're new to this, well, maybe it's not right for you. But if you've been suffering for quite some time, not able to figure it out, that's what it looks at. And I mean, that's essentially our kind of like tagline, is just being able to take back control of your own health. I The reason we put all of these online is that I didn't like that as a young kid myself. We'd have to ask the doctor, can we run this lab test? Can we run that? And they'd be like, hey,
Hmm.
what do you want to run that for? And they would like talk down to us. It would be condescending. So for me, it's just about paying it forward. These are the exact labs I ran 20 years ago to get well. Like, they're not kind of the same, they're the exact same labs. Um, it's pretty amazing. So like even just getting to do this myself is just, I mean, it's a real like it's it really is enjoyable, and I'm extremely grateful to be able to do this as well.
That is so cool. That's awesome. I would love to have you come back on the show. I think we could dive into so many wonderful discussions about holistic health. Please come back on the show.
It would be my pleasure. I had a lot of fun today. Thank you for having me.